guys, I'm Sai, and welcome to Ace Podcast Nation. On the channel, we've got interviews, podcast, content, and all sorts of subjects from sports, football, mental health, MMA and boxing, films and TV, and a whole lot more. We've got our exclusive and unique series. We've got My Story, where we take different people from different professions, different sports, through their career, from start to finish, really, their upbringing, all the way through their career as they share memories, anecdotes. Always a lot of fun. We've had Robbie Regan, former world champion boxer. We've had Reece Weston, former Wales international. Super Kev McNaughton, ex-Cardiff City legend, former Scotland international. As well as the actor and writer, broadcaster who used to play Lofty in EastEnders, Mr. Tom Watt, which was a really fascinating show. Excuse me. And of course, we've got our Unscripted and Uncensored, which is a slightly different series where we leave all the questions and talking points to the people, which is always a lot of fun. And we've had all sorts of different people on there: cage warriors, fighters, boxers, a band, some footballers. Always a lot of fun. But you never quite know where it's going to go is the problem. But it's always funny, at least. So today we're talking a bit of everything: bit of comedy, bit of podcasting, whatever else comes up, really. Just before I do introduce my guest for today, if you could give youtube.com/Ace Podcast Nation a subscribe, that's the best way to support the channel, the podcast network. And of course, you can get all the shows at the usual audio podcasting, radio apps, Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes, and the like. But anyway, joining me today, he's a stand-up comedian, an actor, and a writer, a fellow Cardiffian, Mr. Leroy Brito. How are you, my friend?
I'm good. What about yourself?
Yeah, I'm all right. I'm all right. It's like
Good, good.
the lockdown's just become the norm now, haven't it? It's just like
Yeah,
it's just what
yeah,
it is.
yeah.
It's a
We've
strange one.
adapted.
So we've got to do, I suppose, isn't it?
Hmm.
Like that first week of trying to get, particularly my youngest one, trying to get him to do schoolwork and stuff. I was just like, I don't think I'm going to be able to do this. It was really daunting. He didn't want
Yeah,
me.
yeah,
He didn't want me to do it. I was struggling with it, but as it's gone on, it's kind of got easier and better. And like these days now, we're like done his work by 11, 12 o'clock, and I'm like,
yeah,
right,
yeah, yeah.
what are we going to do for the rest of the day?
Hmm.
But yeah, it is what it is, I suppose. Um, so what I like to do with my guests, mate, is basically just for people who might not be familiar with you or your work, is kind of get you to take us back to the start. Tell us a little bit about you, your upbringing. Get my words
Yeah,
out,
yeah, yeah.
and just take us to where you are now, just briefly.
Yeah. Cardiff born, Butte Town all my life. Um, yeah, went to Mount Stuart Primary School. Two older brothers, little sister. Just a perfect childhood in the '80s, really. It was great before the Bay turned around. So it was just, yeah, it was fun.
I was gonna
I
say
had a perfect childhood.
I was gonna say Cardiff. You've probably seen the change. I was born
Yeah,
in
yeah.
'81, and
Same as me. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
just seeing the way the city's changed over the years is
Hmm.
wild. Sometimes
Yeah,
I
yeah.
look at the pictures of like when I was younger, and you see the difference. Like I haven't been into town for a very long time because I got some health problems and that. But like sometimes when I have been in, and I look and I forget that the haze is not there, and it's
Yeah,
completely
yeah.
changed, and it's very
Yeah, it's
surreal.
different. It's changed twice in our lifetime. So it's a different city.
Yeah, but it's good though. It's like we had Adrian Bevington, who used to work for the FA with all the English footballers
Yes, yeah.
on the Andy Campbell show last night, and like he said, he spent a lot of time in Cardiff with with work and with his England duties, and he said, Cardiff's one of his favourite cities to visit and be a part of.
Hmm.
So that was nice to hear. It's always nice to hear
Yeah,
people
yeah,
praise the city. Um,
yeah,
so obviously, I came across you really from some of your stand-up clips on YouTube, um,
yeah.
and then I saw obviously you had former Olympian or sprinter Tim Benjamin on your podcast. I used to go to
Yes, we
school
did.
with
Yeah.
Tim back in the day, and
Rata High School was it?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
he was in my class, so that was quite strange. And then obviously Andy's one of my closest mates, and you had him
Hmm.
on, so I thought, oh, I'd quite like to have a chat with Leroy. So, but yeah, it was just. So before we get into the stand-up stuff,
Hmm.
Um, I saw a clip. I think it was on YouTube on Buzz TV, possibly. I might have got that wrong. Just where you said that you moved into like stand-up comedy quite late in life.
Yeah, so I would have been. I think it was Buzz magazine,
Okay.
and they done a little piece on me. I was like 29, so already, a fully grown adult. Always wanted to do stand up, but just having kids young and just university and life just gets in the way, and you just forget about it. And then you're pushing towards 30. You think I need to get my ass in gear and actually do this. So I wrote 5 minutes of material, got in touch with an open mic night, Chapter Arts and Drones Comedy Club, and this is the longest I haven't gigged for since that night 9 years ago.
Yeah, that's really cool. It's similar to me in some ways in terms of like I wanted to do like podcasting or interviewing or something like this
Hmm.
for years, and it was something I wanted to do, and I kind of like you say, like you got kids and just life kind of gets in the way.
Hmm.
And I was after 30 by the time I finally got my arse in gear and did it. But sometimes it takes time to get ready, and like I say, life gets in the way. What were
Hmm.
you doing? So before you finally took the plunge and went into your sort of stand-up comedy, what were you doing before that?
Recruitment. So that's what I still do. I still do now.
Oh, right, okay.
So I juggle everything. Yeah. So
God,
yeah.
busy
So
man.
I do executive recruitment now, like search recruitment. But previous to that, I was doing IT recruitment.
Oh, all right. Because you've been in like lots of different stuff. Um, and you've worked with some incredible names within like British TV, British comedy.
Hmm.
Some really talented people. And I was having a look. I was just is it a tourist trap, isn't it? The one
Yeah. Yeah.
where
Taurus trap.
with Sally Phillips in.
Hmm.
That's like some of the people in that like really like top draw uh, actresses, actors.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Sarah Gregory's been in so many different things. Like it's unbelievable. I really like. She's in.
Oh, she's amazing. Yeah.
She's in this crime thing called Isabella Tom Thorne books and just Angela Hinterland as well. Obviously,
Hmm.
it's a Welsh crime thing, and I love all that sort of stuff. So, what was it like to work with such talented people, like big names in the industry?
Well, with Sarah, I didn't get to actually work with her on Taurus Trap.
Okay,
I saw her once on set in season two,
right, okay.
but I knew her. I first worked with her on my first radio commission, which was about Brexit. And just a disclaimer from me, I'm a comedian. I'm not an actor, and she just carried me through the whole process. So I was really grateful for that. And yeah, and then I've only seen her twice since then, unfortunately. But she's had a baby and everything, and yeah, so she's been busy.
Yeah, and obviously you had Sally Phillips, who's in my
Yeah,
mind,
yeah.
Smack the Pony was real groundbreaking comedy at the time.
Hmm.
But
Yes, of
also at
course.
that time, there wasn't a great deal of female comics around.
No.
Obviously you had like Victoria Woods and a couple of others, but generally it was a very male-dominated industry.
Hmm.
The what do you find are the main differences with like obviously you've done some radio stuff,
Yes, yeah.
and you've done a little bit of TV stuff as well. What do you find are the main differences, obviously apart from the obvious?
Well, I've had limited exposure to TV, so I've only really done Tourist Trap
Yeah.
and a few bits for like Comedy Central and little things like that. So my experience at TV, I've been quite lucky because I'm not an actor. I've got into this. I've got no training, so Tourist Trap was all improv, which suited me because that's what I do, every weekend in terms of being able to think on my feet, etc. So that was the easy part. Um, the learning lines would be difficult for me because I just haven't got that training. So then working with people like Sally Phillips, she's improv, so you can bounce off those type of guys. I worked with Tom Price in the first series, and he carried me through it. Him and Remy helped me through just learning how to be on set and
Yeah.
understand what happens, and then you've got to turn the cameras around and things like that. So it was all new for me. So I've gone in naive and just open to to failing open to making a fool of myself and seeing how it goes.
So it's all about experience as well, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah,
Life experience as well, isn't it? It's like
of course, yeah.
trying new things to, not just see how it goes in terms of like just whatever happens, but like
No, you still got to hit it with momentum, and you take it serious, the opportunity. Um, but I was fortunate to get cast in the TV show, and you try to take your opportunities from there. And that's what I try to do from the first experience with the BBC. I've done a short little video on the language in Butetown back in 2016, and it was only like a minute and a half long, and it done quite well online. And I just thought, okay, how can I leverage that video to another relationship? And off the back of that, I got a few meetings within BBC Wales, and then I got introduced to a few different production companies because they wanted me to pitch ideas. And the first thing I pitched, it got a radio commission. That was the Brexit show, and then you just keep on trying to push forward on that. So I've had a commission, luckily, from Radio Wales every year since then, and I'm writing something at the moment with a friend.
Yeah, Radio Wales, they have some good stuff on there. Like I think people have a certain opinion sometimes of uh, like the regional,
Hmm.
like parts of the BBC. But BBC Radio Wales has always had some pretty entertaining stuff on it, and
Yeah, yeah.
their coverage of sports pretty good as well. To be in
Of
fairness,
course, yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, do you prefer like kind of like I know you kind of answered this already, but you said about like you'd rather sort of improv and bounce off people a bit rather than having to learn lines. Because I got to be honest, I've always, whenever I'm watching like a really good performance in like a
Hmm.
film or a TV show, I wonder how people can remember their lines.
Oh, mate, it's the stuff I've done for BBC Sesh. I actually write my own stuff and then have to perform my own stuff, and I can't remember the lines I wrote. I'm one of those guys who's, I've got a good memory. I can remember things from childhood. I can remember stuff that you'd said like 10 years ago. But it's if it's interacting with someone and remembering the lines, then it's just gone from my head. But then I can remember my stand-up set and do an hour of material. So yeah,
Yeah,
I'm never going to win an Academy Award. I'm never going to go down the serious route.
DM, you mentioned BBC Sash there, and I just
Yeah,
said to
yeah.
you before we started that I had never come across it, which is strange because the sort of stuff is like exactly up my alley. It's
Hmm.
Welsh as well, which is the kind of stuff I would watch normally, but for some
Yeah,
reason
yeah.
I'd never come across it. But I was just having another kind of flick through about you really just before we
Hmm.
did the show, and I came across these BBC Sash. They're like sort of I don't know what you'd call them, like skits, but
Yeah,
a
yeah,
few
yeah.
minute skits of different things. And the first one I went on was Welsh people abroad, and I was just chuckling in my garden, and my missus is sort of saying, "What are you laughing at?" And I said, "Oh," he explained it, but it's
Which one was
basically
that? So there's one in the car and then there's one on the beach.
it's the one in the car where the
Okay,
guy
when you, yeah, yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
like, "Where's
So that's
Wales?"
my
In
that's my
England,
friend Ignacio. So he's
right?
he's a comedian as well.
Yeah, yeah,
So
I know the Mac. I know. I know him
yeah,
for a few
yeah.
years. But yeah, and it's like it's kind of like in Wales in England, and then you've got and every Welsh person ever who's been abroad has had that exact conversation, almost word for
Hmm.
word.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
In England, and no, next to England, Scotland, no, it's never
Mm,
ended. But
yeah.
is that is that easy stuff for you to kind of to write and stuff? Because that's got to
Oh
be like
yeah.
real life experiences.
Yeah, that type of stuff is quite easy to churn out. There's not much depth to it. So you write a script. It's only like a page and a half.
Yeah,
I think the bridge video that was, you know, you write it. They say we would want an idea around this idea, and you write it within half an hour a day, and then you film it. It takes 2 hours to film, and then they do the editing, they do everything, and then it goes out. And sometimes it does well, sometimes it doesn't. You haven't really got much influence on what happens once you filmed it.
so with the BBC sesh, I think I did ask you this just before,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it's that predominantly is just like a YouTube thing that
Yeah,
you
it's a
do
Facebook.
that.
It was originally a Facebook thing they've done. So I think it's aimed for like 18 to 30-year-olds, and
Is that
I'm 30.
that's out of my
That's the thing.
age range.
I haven't done much with them recently because I'm too old for that type of shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I'm out of their age range really. So
it's a scary thought, that isn't it? When you start going out of the key
the
demographics.
I'm happy with it because I've always had an old head. So I've always I'm happy I'm out of that game.
Yeah, well, I gotta say, as I've got older, like when I was coming up to 30, I was like, oh no, I'm coming up to 30, coming up to 30. Since I've turned 30, I've been alright with it.
Yeah, my 30s have
I'm
been the
getting on. I'm
best.
quite enjoying it.
Yeah. You know yourself better, don't you?
Yeah, and I always say to my kids, like, I wish I could go back to like my school days and certain parts of my life
Mm,
to deal with them with what I know now, because you just
yeah.
deal with them better. But it's part of life and it's part
Give
of
the
the
younger
journey.
version of you a slap.
Oh God, yeah,
Mm,
yeah. I would love to have a conversation with teenage me. I gotta say,
yeah.
he, teenage me would not like it, but
No, teenage me would think I'm a dick, but
yeah,
yeah,
but maybe I'd get through to him. Um, like I stand up comedy is my thing. I love it.
yeah. Who's your
I would
favorite?
all see. It's changed really over the last couple of years. Like I used to
Mm,
be really for like some of the edgier guys like Frankie Boyle and
mm,
um I like Jimmy Carr. I do a lot. I
yeah.
just because he's a bit different. But then now I see a lot of some, not a lot, but some comedians almost copying that same style. Whereas when
Mm,
Jimmy Carr first came out, he was the only comedian like that whatsoever.
yeah. Cutting,
But
wasn't
yeah, but like I still enjoy his stuff. I think these days or as I've got older, I think I prefer stuff which is based more on real life.
he?
So like
Yeah.
Jason Manford, I quite enjoy because
Yeah.
I can kind of relate to that bit better. I
Hmm.
enjoy that stuff a bit more than stuff that's been, written. And that's not to criticize the people who go, do their comedy that way. It's just
Hmm.
my taste has changed a little
Yeah,
bit.
of course.
And I know like a lot of your stuff from the clips which I was watching earlier again, it seems to be very based within real life.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's all I've lived a life, and I'm happy to report on it. This is what I know, so I can only draw from what I know. I'm not one of those creative people who can think of whimsical stuff and all that type of stuff. There's a market for that, but what I do is just about my life, and this is my take on it really, and what I'm observing. I'm an observational comic.
Yeah, and it's good. It's really good stuff, and I encourage anyone who enjoys a bit of comedy to seek out your stuff because it's genuinely funny. There's not
Yeah,
much stuff which like makes me laugh out loud these days. That sounds really miserable, doesn't it? But like what I mean is there's not a great deal of clips and videos which make me laugh
yeah,
out
sure.
loud, and uh, a good few of yours genuinely did that, and I really enjoy the way you kind of you take the audience in one direction and then woof, you whip the rug out from underneath them and you take
Yeah,
them in the other
sure.
direction before they even realize. And I think
Hmm.
I like to say, it's really good. Is that like I think it's an art in itself that is because you've got to
Oh,
do it.
100%,
You have
100%.
to be
Yeah.
able to do it in a way that, oh, I'm guessing that you have to be able to do it so the audience doesn't see it coming.
Of course, because they know that there's jokes coming,
Of
so
course.
they're waiting for the jokes. So it's up to you to be able to draw where the actual punchline is and take away where they think the punchline is going to be. Um, so it's almost like it's a cliff and you're driving a car over the cliff, and they know that the other side of the cliff's there, but you've got to change where the actual landing point is because they
Yeah,
know they know something's coming. So you've got to draw them in a little bit.
absolutely. Is that like a difficult skill to master, or does it just come naturally because you're a comedian, funny guy?
It's there's no shortcuts in comedy. In terms of I've been doing it 9 years, um, and you've got to be dedicated. You've got to do the mileage. You've got to get out and gig. You've got to gig. Work the material. You can't just think of a show and write the show and then take it out and do a solo show. You have to work the material. You have to do the legwork for it, and that's where the repetition, the learning, watching other comics, etc., dying on your ass.
Mm.
It all helps and all adds to the material. So once you see a show, if you see my 20 minutes, my first 20 minutes. That would have taken me five years to get to that point of having a really solid 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And people don't see that. They just see the 20 minutes that you do and think, where's your new material? It's like, well, it takes a while to master and get this perfect.
You mentioned like dying on your ass. Have
Yeah,
you
yeah.
got like I'm assuming, obviously not being a stand-up comedian myself, but like I'm assuming all comics have to go
Yeah,
through
yeah.
that,
We all do.
along the
We all
way
do.
because you've got to
Yeah,
practice your material, haven't you? You've got to see what works
yeah.
and what doesn't.
Of
Is there
course.
any particular instances that you'd like to share?
Um, it's when I first started. And when you first start in comedy, you get a little bit. You have one or two good gigs, and you start getting a little bit of an ego, and you start getting in touch with the bigger clubs. And start getting an attitude. Why haven't they chose me? You start doing competitions, and I went down to the Comedy Store in London for their Gong Night, which is a brutal night where basically 30 acts go up and they've got 2 minutes before the audience decide that they come off the show.
Oof.
So bong, so you go up, and I was on the second half, but I was the first act of the second half, which meant that they changed the cards around. So when you go to a gong show, who wants the cards? And the first person jumps up, he's going to be a dick, so they don't give that person the cards. They give him the cards on the second go around. So I was up. I went all the way down to London, took time off work, and I was on stage for like 10 seconds. And I come out of there, and I'm fine for gigs. You die on your ass. I'm cool with that. But I come out of there, and central London, Leicester Square, and you come out of the Comedy Store, and you feel like you just got beat up. And I think it was like the Hunger Games premiere that
Right.
night. So
Okay.
you had, the whole thing in Leicester Square where, all the movie stars and everything. And I'm just walking around like I've just been dazed and confused. And that was horrific. Yeah. And I was supposed to stay at my brother's house that night, but I just drove straight back because I thought, let's just get the night over with and let's not, just move on.
Yeah.
Just move on. Yeah.
Did it take you, like long to get over that?
Nah,
Was there like
nah.
just once you sort of cleared your head, you were right?
No, I'm fine. I'm fine. You've got to jump back on a horse. So I've done a gig for a company I joined a few years ago. They want me to do some charity nights. So I've done it, and it was horrific because people think they know you, so they think that you're talking to them as their colleague, and there was just a load of dicks in the audience just giving me shit, and it was horrific. And that night there was another gig in Cardiff, so I phoned up and I said, "Can I jump on?" Just to get the bad gig out of my system. And yeah, you've got you've got to embrace the death, but you've got to move on quite quickly.
Yeah, I guess getting a good gig under your belt quickly is the best way to go about it.
Yeah, yeah,
I've
and don't let the
heard
good gigs get to your head as well. You've got to you've got to
keep a
stay
level.
humble. You've got to stay sharp. So I don't drink before I go on stage. I'll drink afterwards. It's just so I'm at my best, at my
Yeah,
sharpest.
I had a friend of mine who used to do like a bit of like local stand up gigging and stuff,
Mm.
just like in pubs and that. But he'd done a couple of kind of like what's the thing, like when you go to like a works do or something, so it's quite an intimate
Corporate.
atmosphere. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And he said they can be real
They are.
difficult
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. They are.
because it's a small crowd. They're all pissed up and they're all like
They're not
they've
there
all
to see you.
yeah they all think they're funny, and they're like shouting all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I had one earlier this year in the Vale of Glamorgan for the Cardiff Hoteliers Association. So they saw me on Tourist Trap and thought it'd be great to have someone do. So I started about an hour late because they were doing the awards. So everybody's pissed up. Nobody's really there to see me. It's their night, their big night of the year. Um, and the room is so big. There's about 400 people there that the back of the room can't hear me. So they're just talking away, and you're playing to like the first two tables really, and everybody else is just having their own night. So you've got to just do your time, do the best you can, and just try to entertain the people who are actually paying attention to you.
Yeah. Um, do you get nervous before you do gigs?
No, no, I'm good.
Not at all.
I've always been like quite level. So
I was gonna
even
say
my first,
you
yeah, even
seem
my
quite
first
laid
gig,
back, like so.
yeah, yeah, even my first gig, and I've always like even when I'm doing like the big places and I'm standing behind the curtain. if there's even a sense of nerves, I just say to myself, well, this is what you wanted. Why would you be nervous?
Yeah, it's what you've been working towards, isn't it? I suppose.
Exactly. Yeah.
What's like? What about heckles? Have you had any like brutal ones or any good ones given to you?
I don't think there's any good heckles. I think there's
No, but
just it's
you know what I mean, like
just
a witty
it,
one, maybe.
not really because they're usually pissed up. So on the weekend, you're playing stag parties, hen dos, you've heard everything, so you've already done the comeback about 10 times already. It
Yeah,
looks
yeah,
like this. It looks like it's off the cuff,
yeah,
but there's only so many stag parties, and you know,
yeah. Of
yeah,
course. And I suppose like if you had like if I went to every single one of your gigs like that, eventually like you see the same responses to heckles, I guess.
yeah, yeah.
Have you got like a favorite response to heckles?
It depends on the situation because you've got to, you've got to become the alpha male um, in there, but you can't come across as a bully.
Yeah, of course.
Depending on the situation. So, if it's a hen party, you can't just come across and be like, shut the fuck up, because then that can ruin the
Yeah,
atmosphere.
yeah, of
And
course.
but at the same time, if there's a bunch of lads being quite rowdy, you can take it to that level. So you've got to play it, you've got to be just present.
Play to your audience, innit, I
Yeah,
suppose.
you've got to be present, understand who you're playing to. And yeah.
So I had a couple of questions
Yeah.
sent in. Johnny Wish said, "How insane is the Cardiff comedy scene?" He said, "Back in the day, it was wild." He also said he was looking forward to hearing two Cardiff boys chatting.
Yeah, okay. Insane, the Cardiff comedy scene in terms of
Well,
what the characters.
I think he means the general atmosphere, because he was talking about it the other day, just like being quite rowdy and a bit not
Yeah,
excessive, but obviously,
it's a little bit. I'll just be honest. I don't care who I offend or anything. There's a bunch of people who are quite negative,
right?
and just I don't know. Maybe they're not happy where their career is, or whatever. But they're quite vocal online
Oh,
about every single issue, and I don't pay attention to it because it's not really it doesn't help me.
yeah,
I'm a grown man with a family. Why am I paying attention? Why would I pay attention to people arguing over stuff? So
yeah.
yeah. But the friends I've got, I'm close with. But the people there's other people which I don't know sometimes. So just let them get on with it.
Yeah, unfortunately, in 2020, the negativity seems to be like almost it kind of breeds like people just seem to get off on like negativity,
Yeah.
and I've seen it. You wouldn't believe the amount of people like I see like because I do podcasts on all sorts of different stuff, wrestling,
hmm
football, MMA, and
Yeah.
I got a couple of friends who do similar shows or shows on the same sort of stuff, and they've got people who like watch their podcasts, like the MMA one. There's people who watch it just literally they don't like the host, they don't like the show. I'm not even completely sure they like MMA, but they watch the podcast just to post in the live chat about how
Yes,
much they don't
yes, yeah.
like it. It's like hate
Yeah.
watching. I don't understand it.
Yeah. And that just says more about them, and you just gotta just put them in your rear view, haven't you? So I've had people making comments on my videos and stuff, and it's just like, well, does it matter? Do you matter in that respect?
So I had my first troll the other day. Sent
hmm
me some not very nice
What they say?
comments. So basically, if I'd interviewed you last week, I had
hmm
hair down here because
Okay.
I've grown it out for like the last 2 years. So I'll cut a very long story short. My youngest son, who's now 11, he wanted to grow his hair like that long to
hmm
donate to a charity which makes wigs for kids
Yes.
who've
Yeah.
lost
Yeah.
their hair through cancer treatments,
hmm
which I thought was adorable. What a nice thing for a kid to think of.
Yeah.
And,
Of
we
course.
didn't tell him. He kind of thought of it himself. Amazing. So he started doing it. It got like a little bit long. It wasn't massively long. And some boys in school started calling him a girl and making fun of him. So he came home in tears one day and he said, "I want
hmm
my haircut tonight, now." We tried to talk him out of it and kind of remind him why he was growing his hair, and because I knew that he'd be upset afterwards.
Yes. Of course.
He
Yeah.
was he was so upset by it because they're his friends. He
Yeah,
gave a
yeah.
cut. So as a father, I'm like, well, what can I do to try and help the situation, make him feel better?
Hmm.
Because I know he's going to be really sad tomorrow that he's had his haircut. So on the way home, I said, right, I'll grow out my hair. I'll grow it as long as you want me to. You tell me when you want me to cut it, and
Hmm.
then we'll donate it to the same charity that you were going to do. So anyway, so week before last, I announced on the football show. I said, right, I'm cutting my hair. I'm donating it, and then
Hmm.
but I'm going to also try and raise a bit of money for Mind, which is a mental health charity.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Two great causes, whatever. Um, and I said, for every £50 I raise, I will use my green screen and make a stupid video of me with my hair. So I made
Hmm.
one of like me coming out of a waterfall doing like a Timotei advert.
Yeah,
Just
yeah, yeah.
pissing about, but just saying thank you to people for donating.
Hmm. And you're hurting nobody.
Yeah, making fun of myself at the end of the day.
Hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Making myself look stupid.
Yeah.
Within 10 minutes of that video going out, even though it clearly said, thanks for donating, blah, 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 explaining. It was like, oh, you just want the attention, blah, blah, blah. You've grown your hair, and now you're doing this. You're just trying to get more followers, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, I just wrote
Even
back
if
and
you
said,
were, even
thanks for
if you
the
were,
engagement. See you
yeah.
later.
But even if you were, what's the problem? Who are you hurting?
Yeah, it's not like I'm like, I couldn't get my head around it at all
Yeah,
because,
just don't even pay them any attention in your head.
yeah,
Honestly,
no,
they're not worth. They're just unhappy people.
that's what I think. I just don't understand the mentality of contacting a stranger
Hmm.
who's clearly trying to do something good, you know, like helpful for charity, and like having a go at them and criticizing them. I don't even
Yeah,
really
yeah.
understand contacting a stranger to tell them, oh, you're rubbish or this, whatever you want. I don't get that at all. To me, it's like
Hmm.
I was always brought up to say, if you've got nothing nice to say, then don't say nothing.
Yeah,
It is what it is. But yeah, that's that
exactly.
story about my trolls. Sure we'll have more.
Well, they'll
Um,
come back. Yeah.
Peach has asked, what's the best thing about writing, acting, and comedy for each one, and then she wants you to tell her the worst thing for each one as well.
Writing, you get to create your own world. You've got full control of everything there. You can tell your story. Writing, you get notes from the producers who chip away at that idea, which obviously they've got a lot of experience of making things. Sometimes your ideas may not work, etc. Acting, I'm not even experienced as an actor, honestly. Yeah, I haven't got any answers for that. The best thing is my first job was a sitcom. The worst thing is I haven't had an acting job since, I suppose, because I'm not an actor. And then stand up. The best thing is that it's the purest form of art for me in that respect. It's something I've always wanted to do. It's something I'm doing, and I love going on stage and making the audience laugh and smashing them out. I love doing that. I also love the process as well, in terms of writing a new show and working the material and seeing the material evolve and grow and getting robust. I love that process. The worst thing is there's a lot of politics in comedy. Um, it's an opinion game as well, which you have to take on the chin. Sometimes the people who make decisions, they may not like what you do, or they may think that there's somebody better, which you have to just take on the chin and hopefully prove them wrong, become undeniable. And yeah, but that's just in life. There's worse problems to have than not playing a certain club. So
Yeah,
yeah,
of course. When you say like politics within comedy, what do you mean by that?
there's just that you haven't played certain clubs for a while, even though you know you're in throwing distance of them and you've sold
Right.
them out previously. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's yeah, it's frustrating.
Yeah, I can imagine that must be quite frustrating. I can imagine.
Yeah, yeah.
Like obviously your comedy is you've been very lucky. You worked in New York, You've
Yeah,
done
yeah, yeah.
obviously did the Fringe Festival, and then you've done sellout gigs in your hometown in Cardiff, which
Yeah,
I
yeah,
should imagine that must have been like, I know obviously New York is New York, and the Fringe is one of the big, best comedy festivals
yeah,
in the
yeah.
whole world. But like for me, maybe it's because I'm a Cardiff boy as well. Like for me, that hometown gig in front of a sold
Of
out
course,
audience is the one.
it's in the middle. Yeah. So I've grew up in Butetown. I used to play where the Millennium Centre is right now. I lived in a flat um, just by the Millennium Centre for like 8 years. When I first started comedy, I used to go in on a Sunday and do my writing in the foyer of the Millennium Centre and tell myself I'm going to sell this place out. Now, just disclaimer: I'm not talking about the big room. I haven't played the big room yet. It's the other rooms that I've done, but I've had my own solo shows there.
Yeah,
Three of them sold out. Got the word last week that this year's show's cancelled, um, which it just is what it is, isn't it?
yeah,
I'm not going to complain that I can't jump on stage and make people laugh when there's people,
yeah. Dying.
mourning relatives at the moment.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? So it just is what it is. So yeah, it's a highlight to play there. I should record the next one. Hopefully, I'll record the next show. Um, yeah, and then put it out there for people.
I was going to ask you that. Have you recorded any of your solo shows at all?
Not professionally, just for myself. But I'm thinking, well, this year I was planning to do it because they've moved the room around now, so it'd make it look better. I was going to bring a production company in to film it, um, but now I've got more time to make the material better.
Indeed. Do you practice like at home?
No,
No.
it's no. So the process in terms of writing is just like ideas come to me, and I'll chuck them into my phone as a note, and I let it percolate and marinate in my head and try to get it. But sitting down, I can't really sit down and write a joke long form. I have to just think of it and work it out in my head and then take it on stage and see where it goes. Um, so that's the process.
Yeah, it's something which really interests me. Like I say, because I'm a big like stand-up comedian fan. I find it
Hmm.
really interesting listening. I had another stand-up comic, like another Welsh guy, like I mentioned earlier, who was on. And it's just listening to how different different ways people work, different ways. Like for instance, he used to have a good few drinks before he went on show just to
Mm.
help settle his nerves and stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Whereas I think I've done one podcast which was on my birthday where I had a couple of beers before and during, and I didn't like it at all because
Yeah, too loose,
yeah, too loose.
overconfident.
Just 100%. And
Yeah,
it's one of my
timing's off.
least favorite shows because I didn't
Yeah.
feel on point. Um,
Hmm.
but everyone's different, and everyone's
Yeah,
different.
yeah, yeah.
Um, okay, so just to finish off, you launched your podcast fairly recently, wasn't it?
Yeah, we're 7 episodes in now, so it's 7 weeks ago.
Where did what gave you the idea for the podcast?
I've been meaning to do it for a few years, bought the equipment, but just never got around to it. So it was my mate, he played for Swansea at the time, and I was really interested in his story. So he came across from Spain, was a lower league footballer there, went to Swansea, played for like 10 years for them. Now he's at QPR. I just thought that's a brilliant story. Um, so yeah, that was the idea. Didn't do it, and then we got in lockdown. I thought, I can actually do this remotely. I don't need to be in front of people. I don't need that excuse anymore, and just set it up. So it's a one man band thing. It's pulling up by your bootstraps. It's not professionally done, but it is what it is, and we'll get better every episode. I've learned to stop saying obviously. So I used to say obviously constantly.
Yeah, one of my things, particularly in the early shows, is
Mm,
I was really Cardiffian because it's like I tried to make all my shows like just natural conversation rather
mm,
than like a formal question and answer, and I kept saying like
yeah,
every two
yeah.
seconds, but it
Mm,
is what it is. But did you ever? So, what's the premise behind your podcast? Is you
yeah.
speak to sports
Sports
stars, basically.
athletes. I'd speak to anyone really in terms of just their life. So it's called Moment of Truth. So a great example. would be Gareth Bale. So in terms of where he was at Spurs, he was, we knew about him, but he was a left back at Spurs, um, and he was going to go out on loan, all that type of stuff. Wasn't playing, and then they just turned for him, and that was his moment of truth. Within a short time frame, he was the best winger in the Premier League. He was, he had the Brazilian right back in his pocket at the San Siro, and it's those type of moments. So I'd be
Yeah.
keen on that. Or Calzaghe, speaking about the Jeff Lacey fight, everyone know who he was, but that fight just took him to another level. Or it could be, failure in sport. It could be where you didn't actually, win the title. It could be that you didn't, anything really. Just a deeper conversation. And I'm still learning. I'm not a journalist. I'm just someone who's interested in sports.
Yeah, it's I listened to Andy's one.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna have a listen to Tim's as well. I enjoyed it, mate. I
Mm.
gotta say. Did you ever
Oh,
have
good.
any other kind of ideas for the podcast, or was it always gonna be that?
It was always that, really. I spoke to the BBC about a few different ideas, and they were really interested. So I just thought I'd do it myself. Why do I need the BBC? I'm not in it. No, I'm not trying to make money out of the podcast. I'm just trying to engage with people. Really, if they like if they find out I'm a stand-up and then come to my shows, that's even better.
Yeah, that's it. No, and it's and the thing is now technology's changed the game, haven't it? It's like
Hmm.
we've I think I'm in about 200, I think 213 episodes in of all the
Oh
different
wow.
podcasts which
Yeah,
I
yeah.
do, and like I look back at some of the early ones, and I think, oh god, doesn't look great.
Mm.
I don't like the way I am,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is a shame when I look back at it because some of the early guests which I had on were really interesting people and
Yes,
all
yeah.
really interesting topics. So I'm trying to get a few of them back on now because I'm more comfortable in my own skin. I'm more
Hmm.
used to doing it. The quality of the equipment I got is better. But the good thing is because you can do it remotely, it is
Yeah, it's
so
easier.
easy to
It's
do now,
easier.
isn't it?
Yeah, and
Um,
sports people are not doing anything at the moment. Well, they're going back to training now,
Yeah, that's it.
which
I managed to catch a few of them over the lockdown period, which maybe we wouldn't have been able to do,
yeah, yeah.
if everything was up and running. So, okay, so like just to finish, I
Hmm.
wanted to just kind of ask you about your kind of biggest influences, whether
Yeah, yeah.
comedic, music, whatever they may be.
Hmm.
What's influenced you along the way?
Well, the reason I'm into I do stand up is people like Eddie Murphy, Richard Pryor, Jerry Seinfeld, Chris Rock, and the tipping point for me is going to see Louis C.K. in London. Not sure if we can speak about Louis at the moment, um, but that was the tipping point for me. Um, in terms of like just influences and how I try to be on stage, and without sounding like someone who smells his own farts. It's Miles Davis. It's that jazz. So it's being so technically strong that you can step up from what you're doing and make something. So
Yeah,
that's where I try to treat comedy because just in terms of the artistry of Miles Davis and the reinvention over the years, that's who I look up to.
there's worse people to
Yeah,
look up to and base your story be influenced by.
yeah. And,
Um,
and Kevin Hart's hustle. I'm not a massive fan of his stand up, but his work ethic and his positivity is just on another level.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
It's weird. Like for me, like when you say about hustle, I look at like The Rock as well.
Yeah, yeah,
The
yeah, yeah.
way that he is just completely gone from like WWF star or whatever to biggest movie star on the planet, and
Hmm.
he's just completely changed the world's perception of him. He's made some
Yeah,
big
yeah, yeah.
films, and it's all through like just hustling and getting himself out there and improving his
Exactly.
work, his craft.
Exactly. He's got a really interesting story in terms of his American football career didn't happen. I think he was actually on the same team as Aaron Hernandez down in Miami
That's right.
in
Yeah.
college, and he injured himself and he dragged himself back up and then got to the pinnacle of wrestling. And people would think that's it, but you've got other acts in your life, haven't you? You've got other stories to tell within your life, and it's up to you to push yourself and do that.
100%. The Welsh sport and entertainment scene at the moment, it seems so strong. Like
Mm.
genuinely, there's some guys and girls who are either already top tier talent or look like they're on their way. If I asked you to pick one Welshman or one Welsh woman who you think is going to go to the very, very top of their profession, who would it be?
Ampatu, the Ethan,
Yeah, yeah.
just another level,
What a choice
just
that is.
another level, just in terms of maturity, his ceiling. Um, he's out in Germany at the moment, and that shows maturity at a young age.
100%.
So yeah, I think what he can be, in the Premier League, if Chelsea bring him back and everything, yeah, yeah,
Oh yeah, I think if Chelsea don't bring him back and he ends up going somewhere else, he's likely to go to a to a top tier team.
yeah. I could see
Hundred
you could
percent.
see that player at Barcelona.
Oh yeah, hundred
Yeah,
percent. He's that good. I was hoping that Cardiff might pinch him on loan when he went out to Germany, but I think he's probably
nah,
a bit out of the league already.
yeah, he would be, yeah. Um,
Right.
yeah, in terms of football, yeah, because that's what I watch.
Yeah, I'm the
Oh, and
same.
Louis as well, Louis Zamet, Reece Zamet.
Right.
He's got some potential as well on the
Yeah.
wing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a few Welsh boys like in that under 21s or under 23s teams, which they could go on and be really special. Which when you
Mm,
look at how Welsh football's gone over the last couple of years and since just before Euro 2016, it's exciting times. It's a shame
yeah.
that Bale and Ramsey are now like 2 or 3 years down the
Yeah,
road
yeah.
because I think
I
it would
understand.
be
Yeah.
very very special then.
Hmm.
But before we get really into football, I'm gonna leave it there because I appreciate you giving me so much of your time. And if we start talking football, I'll be here for another hour.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I know you. I appreciate you giving up me your time, mate. Tell the people where your website is, your social medias, and all
Yeah,
that sort of
yeah.
stuff.
So website is leroybrito.co.uk. So it's Brito with one T. Social media is at Leroy Brito on Twitter. I think it's Leroy Brito Comic on Facebook and at Leroy Brito on Instagram. And the podcast is called Moment of Truth.
Excellent. I'll put links to everything in the show description as well. Guys, you can find us if you want video formats of our shows, youtube.com/Ace Podcast Nation. You can also find we have live football show every Monday with Andy Campbell and myself and a special guest. And we had recently had Cardiff City Chairman Mehmet Dalman on, which was quite the coup for us because he does not do a lot of media and he's never done a podcast before. So I was chuffed to beans that I was able to get him on. We've also had Clayton Blackmore on, Stuart Downing, and lots of different personalities from the football world. We have an MMA show live on a Wednesday, 9 o'clock, with former Cage Warriors champion Danny Batten, which will also add in new guests to each week. I'm recording an unscripted, uncensored with the current Cage Warriors champion, lightweight champion Mason Jones, another Welshman, on Thursday, so you can get your questions in for that. And we've also got a boxing series coming very soon with some very, very special guests. And subscribe, youtube.com/Ace Podcast Nation, and spread the word. Thank you, Leroy. Appreciate your time, mate.
Thanks for having me, mate.